Good morning, children. Today I am going to teach you my early days with the chimpanzees, second part. Okay? Children, earlier we have studied that Jane Goodall first step in Gombe National Park in 1960, where there were chimpanzees and she wanted to know more about the chimpanzees, how they sit, roam, live, eat, etc. Okay, after a year she has approached to them within 100 yards. Okay, so we will proceed to know what information she got about the chimpanzees. Okay, and did she get nearer to the chimps or not? Okay, so let's start the story further. Okay, as time went by, I began to learn more about the other creatures that shared the forest with the chimpanzees. There were four kinds of monkeys in addition to the baboons, and many smaller animals such as squirrels and mongoose. There was also a whole variety of nocturnal creatures, porcupines and civets, and all the manners of rats and mice. Only a very few animals in the forests at Gombe were potentially dangerous, mainly buffalo and leopard. And of course, there are poisonous snakes, seven different kinds. Children, as time went by, the author began to learn more about the other creatures that shared the forests with chimpanzees. Means she found many animals that used to live with chimpanzees and in the forest. There were four kinds of monkeys in addition to baboons, and many smaller animals such as squirrels. Squirrels means gilhari, and mongoose. Mongoose means nevle. Okay, and there was also a whole variety. Variety means type. Okay, kind, species of nocturnal animals, and nocturnal means happening at night. ओके रात में निकलने वाले जानवर. ओके, और कौन से है? Porcupines and civets. Porcupines are a large cat-like animals with spikes on their body and tail, and civet is a cat-like animals with spotted furs. Okay, and all the manners of rats and mice. Okay, only a very few animals in the forest at Gombe were potentially means maybe dangerous. Okay, mainly buffalo, leopard, and poisonous snakes. Seven different kinds of poisonous snakes were there. Okay, once as I arrived on the peak in the early morning, before it was properly light, I saw the dark shape of the large animal looming in front of me. I stood quite still. My heart began to beat fast, for I realized it was a buffalo. Many hunters fear buffalo more than lions or elephants. Okay, children, then what happened? Author is telling here that when she arrived on the peak, children, peak means top of something, or to reach highest point, or be at height. Okay, so it was early morning and she saw the dark shape of a large animal looming. Looming means appearing, approaching, or seen in front of her. Okay, she stood quite still and her heart began to beat fast. Then she realized that it was a buffalo. Okay, many hunters fear buffalo more than lions or elephants. By a lucky chance, the wind was blowing from him to me, so he couldn't smell me. He was peacefully gazing in the opposite direction and chewing his cud. He hadn't heard my approach. I always try to move as quietly as I can in the bush. So, though I was only 10 yards from him, he had no idea I was there. Very slowly, I retreated. Okay, children, then what happened? It was her luck that the wind was blowing from the buffalo to her. So the buffalo couldn't smell her. Okay, the buffalo was peacefully gazing. Children, gazing means looking in the opposite direction. Okay, and chewing his cud. The buffalo didn't heard her approach. Approach means, children, means of arriving. Okay, coming nearer. So she moved quietly in the bushes. Okay. Though Other was 10 yards from the buffalo, he didn't know that someone is behind or the other is behind. So she slowly retreated. Retreated means go away, departed slowly in the bushes. Okay. Okay, children, move to the next para. Another time, as I was sitting on the peak, I heard a strange mewing sound. I looked around, and there, about 15 yards away, a leopard was approaching. I could just see the black and white tip of its tail above the tall grass. It was walking along the little trail that led directly to where I sat. Leopards are not usually dangerous unless they have been wounded. Very silently, I moved away and looked for chimps in another valley. Later, I went back to the peak. Okay, children, then what happened? Another time. Means next time, when she was sitting on the peak, she heard a strange mewing sound. Okay, so she looked around about 15 yards away. A leopard was approaching. Approaching means arriving, coming. So she just see the black and white tip of its tail above the tall grass. It was walking along the little trail. Okay, trail means track, path that led. Led means coming forward directly where she was sitting. Okay, leopards are not usually dangerous unless they have been wounded. Wounded means harmed or injured by others. Okay, very silently she moved away and went to look the chimps in another valley. Okay, and later she went back to the peak. Okay, chimps sleep all night just as we do. From the peak, I often watched how they made their nest or beds. First, the chimp bent a branch down over some solid foundation, such as fork or two parallel branches. Holding it in place with his feet, he then bent another over it. Then he folded the end of the first branch back over the second, and so on. He often ended up picking lots of small, soft, leafy twigs to make a pillow. Okay, children, then what happened? The writer, noticed that the chimps sleep all night just as we do. Okay, and from the peak, she often noticed that how they made their nest or beds. Okay, first the chimps bent means bowed the branch mean branch को झुकाते down over some solid foundation, okay, such as a fork or two parallel branches. They used to take two branches and they used to curve it or make it as a parallel or as a fork, okay, and holding it in place with his feet, he then bent another over it. Then he folded the end of the first branch back over the second, and so on. He often ended up picking lots of small, soft, leafy twigs to make a pillow also. Okay, children? Okay, children, just see how chimps make nest and sleep in their nest. Okay?
Much like a bird's nest, these chimps' nests are made out of leaves, branches, and other plant material.
They'll climb up and find a good steady branch or two, and they'll start breaking branches back in towards this good sturdy branch. They'll build themselves a nice platform.
Only a mother and her nursing offspring will share a nest together. Nests are safe havens, a place to give birth, heal from a disease, and even die in.
Okay, children, move to the next para. Chimps like their comfort. I have learned over the years that infants sleep in their nest with their mothers until they are about 5 years old or until the next baby is born. And the older child has to make its own bed. I never returned to camp before sunset. But even when I slept on the peak, I first went down to have supper with Mum and tell her what I had seen that day. As she would tell me what she had been doing, Mum set up a clinic. She handed out medicine to any of the locals, mostly fishermen, who were sick. Once she cured an old man who was very ill indeed. Okay, children, what happened after watching what the author recognized that chimps like their comfort. Okay, and she had learned that over the years that the infant means small chimps, used to sleep in their nest with their mothers until they are about 5 years old or until the next baby is born. Okay, and the older child has to make its own bed. Okay, then what happened? She never returned to camp where her mother was there. Okay, sunset, but even she slept on the peak. She has not returned to the camp before sunset, but even she slept on the peak only. Okay, she went down to have a super means meal or a dinner with her mum and tell her what she had seen that day. Okay, and her mother also used to share what she had been doing. Okay, her mom has set up a clinic. Okay, she handed out a medicine to any of the locals. Okay, mostly fishermen who were sick. Okay, once she cured an old man who was very ill. Word about this cure spread far and wide, and sometimes patient would walk for the miles to get treatment. Her clinic was very good for me. It meant that the local people realized we wanted to help. Mum had to go back to England after 4 months to manage things at home. Of course, I missed her after she had gone, but I didn't have time to be lonely. There was so much to do. Once she cured an old man who was very ill. Okay, and the news spread far and wide. And hearing this, sometimes the patient would walk from the miles to get treatment. Okay, her clinic was very good for me. Means people think that she cures the patient well and they wanted to help them also. Okay, her mother had to go back to England after 4 months to manage things at home also. Okay, but the author tells that she missed her mother after she had gone, but she engaged herself finding more about chimpanzees and she had no time to be lonely. Okay, children, thank you.